Welcome to the Carnage Count. We round up the kills in all our favorite scary movies. Have we got a treat for you today? We're looking at Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday, released in 1993, and a movie so ridiculous and different that I'm still not entirely sure how I feel about it. Like I mentioned last episode, Paramount was done with Friday the 13th after Jason Takes Manhattan stumbled into the lowest box office take of the series. New Line Cinema ended up with the rights and decided it was a good idea to put a 23-year-old first-time director in charge of their very first Jason movie. What could go wrong? Turns out, a lot. Looking to create a different kind of Friday the 13th movie, Adam Marcus largely succeeded in doing so, mostly because Jason is only in about 10 minutes of the movie. But instead of a copycat killer like Roy Burns, in this movie, Jason Voorhees is more like a disembodied evil spirit that can possess different people and use them as vessels of murder. It's exactly as absurd as it sounds, and on top of all that, the film tries to establish a mythology surrounding Voorhees' blood out of thin air. It's a little bit lower resolution, but it makes a world of difference because it has some of the best gore in the series. Like, we're talking seriously gruesome kills. Speaking of which, let's get to them already. The movie opens deceptively like any other Friday film. Attractive woman, albeit one dressed like she fucking belongs in Hey Arnold, goes to a cabin on Crystal Lake, gets naked, gets attacked by Jason. Great start. This is what we're familiar with, only something's a little off, and it's definitely not that gravity-defying towel. Note, turns out this woman leads Jason into a trap because she's actually an FBI agent who can do badass somersaults. What seems like the entire FBI then pops up out of bushes and drops down from trees to shoot Jason with every gun imaginable before finally blowing him to smithereens. Now, because his body gets so decimated here, I'm gonna count Jason as the film's first victim, coming in at a cool 7 minutes in. Yes, I know his heart is still beating. I can inflate my body counts if I want to. I'm the one doing all the damn work here. After the opening credits, which are intercut with a coroner's report, we dive headfirst into Crazy Town when Coroner Phil gets mesmerized by Jason's beating heart and promptly eats it like a savage dog. That's what you get for not having paid lunch breaks. It's a super nasty sequence, even nastier in the unrated version, and honestly it's kind of amazing. Now, there's some dispute online when to count a death for the people possessed by Jason. Seems like a lot of people do it when he possesses them, but I'm gonna do it after he leaves their body because, I don't know, that makes more sense to me. Fight me. With that rule in place, our second victim is the assistant coroner, but only after he tells Jason how he really feels. Fun fact, dude was played by the guy who wrote this movie, and Jason does to him what his screenplay does to storytelling, absolutely butchers him. He smashes his face against a grate and stabs him through the neck with a probe thing. Like I said guys, great gore. Look at those pieces of face, just jammed right in there, tight. Jason, who for whatever fucking reason is revealed in reflections, like a reverse vampire or something, goes to leave but reveals how petty he is when he stops to kill a couple of security guards who talk shit about him. The cut to a crime show is pretty great, and even better is that the big security guard right there is Kane Hodder himself. I wonder how he feels about getting an off-screen death like that. Probably cries about it over all his Jason money. A douchy newscaster tells the world about these kills. By the way, how do they have this footage of the assistant coroner? When did they shoot that? And then he interviews Creighton Duke, a bounty hunter obsessed with Jason in the best part of this movie. We'll get plenty more Duke, so don't you worry. Over at a diner near Crystal Lake that's treating Jason's death very respectfully, we meet waitress Diana and the rest of the staff, including fellow waitress Vicky, Joey, the brash owner, Joey's husband Shelby, who's played by Leslie Jordan, and their son Ward, who looks about as Midwestern as you can get. Duke tries to recruit Diana to help him hunt down Jason because, surprise, she's Jason's half-sister that's never been mentioned before. Then we meet Steven, who is the ex-lover and baby daddy of Diana's daughter Jessica. Yep, got that right. And on his way to go meet Diana to find out some cryptic information, he stops and picks up some sexy hitchhikers who are headed to Crystal Lake now that Jason's dead. He drops them off without taking up Alexis's totally random offer for sex. Good thing he doesn't, because after giving the tent to her camping buddies for some porkin' in the woods, she winds up getting her face slashed a whole bunch of times with a scalpel by coroner guy Jason. Her body is later shown against a tree. In the tent, Debbie and Luke have what is definitely the most explicit sex scene of the series so far. Both actors were actually naked for it, which may have been a little awkward since they had actually been a real-life couple, just recently broken up. In movie, they decide to forego protection, which fake Jason doesn't care for at all, so he grabs a signpost and impales Deborah through the back with it, then yanks the pole upward and rips her in half. This only happens in the unrated version and is probably the single biggest difference between the two cuts. Brutal. I love this kill. Luke screams his bloody face off, but Coroner Jason kills him off screen. I guess his head gets crushed since you kinda hear a crunch, but nothing confirmed, so L can't say for sure. Back at the restaurant, Coroner Jason tracks down his sister and stalks her from the woods. For some reason he lets her get away, instead opting to kill this chick Edna by slamming her head in a car door. It looks pretty bad when you freeze frame it like this, and you know what? That's not necessarily a fatal injury. Fake Jason kidnaps Josh the cop and in a delightfully homoerotic scene, bounds him to a table, shaves his face, then open-mouth kisses him. The kiss was to transfer Jason's soul to Josh's body, so with that, I'll count the coroner as being dead. I'm beginning to see the error or my ways here. Not much to show right now when this spirit transference happens off screen, but oh well. Diana talks to her daughter Jessica on the phone, who would be Jason's half-niece, I think. Oh, and hey look, Jessica has a little baby Voorhees. Anywho, policeman Jason shows up and attacks Diana and almost slips her the tongue before Steven walks in and tackles him like a boss. Steven may look like a nerd, but he's actually kind of a badass, you'll see. Regardless, Diana gets a knife sharpener thrown into her back, and although Steven is able to impale cop Jason and throw him out a window, Diana still dies, telling Steven with her dying words to protect Jessica. I think the saddest thing here is that she died in her picnic blanket waitress uniform. Sheriff Ed shows up, and since police Jason's body has disappeared like Michael Myers, Steven is caught red-handed. He's taken to jail and locked up, reminding me of Tommy Jarvis in Part 6, way back when these movies had Jason. Good times. Steven's jailmate is Creighton Duke, who is all sorts of crazy, giving Steven exposition for the cost of breaking his fingers. Why? Cause he's crazy. I just told you. What kind of information does a couple of broken fingers buy you? Bullshit. Steven accosts his buddy Officer Randy and breaks out of jail to sneak into the Diner of Sensitivity, where he sees his baby daughter before Ward shoos him away. Then he heads to the Voorhees house, which all of a sudden exists and is a thing, and after leafing through the Necronomicon, falls through some floorboards in the closet. From there, he witnesses douchebag anchor Robert Campbell get attacked by policeman Jason, who then totally French kisses him and transfers Jason's soul into his body. Officer Josh's body then just fucking melts, sticking to the floor, having his jaw come off. Damn, that is some sweet Cronenberg-like body horror there, guys. Appreciate it. It's good. Oh yeah, while watching this, Diana's body falls onto Steven and into the basement. That'll come back later. Anchor Jason gets up and leaves, heading to Jessica's house while she's having a good shower cry. Just let it all out, Jess. Anchor Jason tries to suck face, but Steven intervenes a second time and saves her. She doesn't believe him about all this Jason hooey, though, so she pushes him out of the car and leaves him on the side of the road, running straight to Sheriff Ed at the police station, who sends Officer Randy out to arrest Steven. They wrestle a bit like they're the best of friends and have a scene with some actually good banter. When Steven finds out Jessica's at the station, he turns himself in, but before they can make it back, Anchor Jason arrives and busts Officer Ryan's head against a locker, killing her with a move many nerds survived just fine in high school. So, maybe up that recruiting process a little bit, huh? Steven shows up, gives Officer Sean the old hop and elbow, then shoots Anchor Jason a bunch of times against a wall. He and Jessica escape, leaving these poor cop bastards to deal with the body. Jason wakes up from his disco nap and crushes their heads together, killing them both. They never really stood a chance, but at least they got to die together. That's kinda nice. Also, Creighton clotheslines his way to freedom. Back at the diner for the caring and empathetic, Steven and Jessica are just trying to get their baby, man, when fake Jason shows up and starts a wholesale massacre. First is Ward, who gets his hand broken at the wrist and his body thrown against the door. I feel like that's still a fixable injury, but you know what? Probably not on any healthcare that Ward has, so, sure, that's a kill. Then what follows is a ridiculous slow-motion shootout scene. It's slow motion for so long you'd think it was a mistake, but really, just remember, 23-year-old first-time director. Only in the unrated version do you get the next death, a random nameless patron who it looks like was killed by stray buckshot from Vicky's shotgun. That's a real bummer, man. You go to your favorite dig for a cup of coffee and get shot by the waitress. Fake Jason ignores Vicky for now, opting instead to kill Shelby next. He grabs his head and straight up deep fries him, extra crispy, eventually tossing his body onto the grill. He died as he lived, grilling meat. Anchor Jason takes care of Joey with a single elbow to the mouth, bashing her face in. And, I'm sorry, that makeup effect is weird and confusing. I don't like it. Looks like she has a golf ball in her mouth. Vicky continues to be a badass, shooting fake Jason with her shotgun and jabbing him with a metal rod. But she gets too close and fake Jason pulls her onto the pipe, impaling her through the gut and making her spit up blood in the unrated version. He then pops her head like a pimple. Lots of blood, great kills, and hey, she went out with a fun little quip. Fake Jason passes out like a freshman after his first frat party and Jessie runs away, headed to the Voorhees house alone to get her baby just like the nice note told her to. The writer of the note was noted crazy man Creighton Duke, who's probably not the first guy you'd want to call to be your babysitter. He gives her the whole breakdown. Jason is spirit possesses people and he can only be fully reborn or ultimately killed by another Voorhees. In other words, give that baby a dagger. Just kidding, he gives Jessica the dagger which turns into a magical Power Ranger sword, and then he falls through those shitty-ass floorboards, injuring his leg in the process. Back at the diner, a first-person POV shot checks out all the bodies before getting ambushed by Anchor Jason, who then transfers his soul off-screen, giving us the death of Robert Campbell and just, like, really reiterating to me how flawed this kill-counting method is. I'm sorry. At the Voorhees house, Sheriff Ed shows up acting a little crazy, and then Officer Randy shows up acting a little less crazy, and Jessica can't trust either of them, even though both of them are acting way less crazy than anyone else possessed by Jason thus far. Ed ends up stabbing himself on Jessica's dagger like something out of Cell Block Tango, which is the first time I've seen a police officer do a suicide by cop. Then this movie is like fuck continuity and revels that the normal acting Randy actually is possessed by Jason. He grabs the baby and prepares to get weird with it, but Steven shows up to knock that shit off for the third time, stopping him with a machete slice to the neck. Officer Randy is ultimately killed when this horrid fucking spawn from your worst fucking nightmares crawls out of his fucking neck. Jesus, that thing's nasty. And what is that? Jason? Is that Jason? What the fuck? Whatever it is, it crawls around and plays hide and seek and hops onto Steven's face before he throws it in the basement, where it eventually enters Diana's corpse via very unsavory means. Since Diana is a Voorhees and since the movie tells us this little tidbit, now Jason gets resurrected in full-on Jason form, hockey mask and everything, and break Creighton Duke's back with a big ol' bear hug. Unrated version has some blood spit up, but it's still a lame way to go for one of the absolute coolest and most memorable characters in the entire franchise. Steven, continually the badass, tackles Jason through a window and engages in a fight that would have killed most people in the series, distracting Jason long enough for Jessica to find her Power Ranger dagger and stab him in the chest. His soul, like, erupts from his body, looking like a bunch of Roman candles popping off into the sky. A falcon kick seals the deal, causing, like, a bunch of different colored lights to go from the sky back into Jason? I don't know what's going on here. Then a bunch of those hands from Labyrinth pop up and pull him underground. And with that I'll count Jason once again on the Carnage count. But don't worry Jason, it's only forever, not long at all. With Jason taken care of, the movie literally ends with our heroes walking off into the sunrise together, because, once more, first-time 23-year-old director. Oh, except one more thing. Freddy Krueger's fucking glove pops up and drags Jason's mask to hell. Yeah boy, too bad audiences would have to wait a decade to see their matchup finally come to fruition. In the meantime, we've got this mess to deal with, so let's do those counting. This one's kind of difficult to quantify, what with the possessions and the different versions, but I'm gonna say that 23 kills happened, including Jason himself twice. 7 of them were girls and 16 of them guys, a pretty damn imbalanced ratio. The unrated version runs 90 minutes long, so that's a kill on average every 3.75 minutes, making this the entry with the most frequent in the series so far. Excellent execution is a bit tough here, given all the awesome kills. I'll hand it to Josh's body, which melts into the floor and leaves its jaw behind. I absolutely love that shit, and I'm shocked that shot was in the R-rated cut. Conversely, Tame knife stab will go to Deborah's lover Luke since it's done entirely off-screen. And that's it. Released in 1993, written in just 4 days, no joke, and directed and crewed by a bunch of kids who weren't even old enough to run for Congress. Jason Goes to Hell is a very divisive movie, so divisive in fact that I'm still not entirely sure how I feel about it, but I think I don't like it. Still boring. Next up we're going off into space with Jason X. Until then, I will see you in space, and this has been the Carnage Count.